Autism is one of the more relevant learning disabilities we've become familiar with, considering 1 in 68 children today being diagnosed. Autism is a developmental disorder, including struggles with communicating social skills, utilizing speech and nonverbal language, and many other symptoms such as specialized interests and heightened sensitivities, all affecting the developmental process of autistic individuals, including myself. Being diagnosed with autism has led to many ups and downs in my life, but so far has also led me to find a passion in spreading awareness of the disability and also cherishing others on the spectrum through my own filmmaking. This is no different when finding the same intentions within filmmakers that are already involved in the entertainment industry. There has been a lot of exposure to the diagnosis, from TV to film to even PSAs and documentaries. So, let's look at what makes them overall great pieces of work. So to start off, let's look at some of the entertainment that already exists about autism. For theatrical features, there are a few that come to mind. There's Oscar-nominated work like Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, the stop-motion feature Mary and Max, the Temple Grandin film with Claire Danes, and The Accountant with Ben Affleck. There are countless others out there such as A Mile in His Shoes, Rain Man, Mozart and the Whale, The Boy Who Can Fly, The Story of Luke, and my personal favorite, What's Eating Gilbert, Grape. Each of these films are especially unique, similar to how one individual with autism finds themselves uniquely different than typical society. These films typically follow someone on the spectrum while facing symptoms that over-challenge their belonging in society. They show the protagonist striking an impact on those they love, and also being a main concern because of their needs. They also have a specialized interest or genius-like assets when compared to their peers, or have a specialized goal, or they're used as a means of conflict in the story between the other characters surrounding them. We still love seeing their childlike awe and wonder, and their determination to prove that they can do what everyone else does, even if it takes a little more work.
And I knew I was different, but not less. I could see the world in a new way. I could see details that other people were blind to.
There are varying TV shows that also depict those with autism. These include Parenthood, The Big Bang Theory, Bones, and The Bridge. But on TV, you usually don't see the series evolve entirely around the main character, like it seems to portray with ABC's new show, The Good Doctor. If we take Netflix's recently released Atypical, for example, you come to realize that Sam, the lead character with autistic traits, is only a part of the story arc in the show, as you also see the family around him get additional screen time. These two varying stories do come here and there, but I've seen film studios take the route of involving entirety rather than subtlety. Both still very much work as good approaches to the disability. Other media involving autistic characters is more sporadic, but still very much recognized and have more room to allow more inclusion in coming releases. These include, but aren't limited to, Christopher Boone in the famous novel turned play, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and Bridget Tenenbaum in the video game BioShock. We know autism in its fullest light does shed good messages of acceptance and awe, but how does one story about one autistic character around a handful of other vital characters differ? To see this, we have to examine the main characters and their environments. Starting with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Arnie Grape is shown as being severely autistic. Arnie needs assistance from his family, especially his brother, because he can't be fully dependent for himself. He shows signs of hand flapping, short attentiveness, unknowing of critical thinking for himself, especially in very perilous situations. This also demonstrates itself with his lack of self-control and also a sense of self. We see he loves his family and does his best to fully understand what's around him through observation. We just don't see any motives or keen interests other than minor plot points added for his character to interact with. And again, Arnie's behavior is stereotyped as autism because of his sensitive, nonverbal, and ecstatic behaviors. He still gives context to the struggles within a very dysfunctional family inside a rural, small-town environment, where all of the characters are felt objectified against. And they also don't have any justification or research that explains Arnie's stunts, because of their lack of awareness for his disability and how to even care for it. We have Gilbert, who essentially is the trusted caretaker of Arnie. He acts as a father figure and assists his morbidly obese mother with income, home repairs, and overall responsibility over his siblings. Those siblings including 2 sisters who do help the mother clean and cook, but still are teenagers and don't have as much experience around their autistic brother. Gilbert, who's surprisingly the main character, faces a struggle between doing what's right for himself versus what's right for his struggling family. He has to put aside his own interests and goals for the greater good, and only gets satisfaction from the other women in the town that come into his life. And we do feel terrible for Gilbert because he is helpless and alone in his own battles. It also makes us glad to follow such a strong character that does develop himself and always tends to those around him in a not-so-great world. Now, when I was looking at the TV shows I had seen, I thought it best to talk about Atypical, knowing that it's the most recent show that I could access and knowing that autism awareness has become more prominent than it was 20 years ago. So, more knowledge and conversation about autism has increased exponentially. Sam Gardner is the hero, as opposed to Arnie's brother, and is the narrator to his own story. To share some information about his character, we first have to include his fascination with the Arctic, because this self-interest guides the audience through his interpretation of the more complicated world around him. His main motive in the show is to discover love and to find some belonging as more than the weird kid. As the story continues, we see him think to himself constantly, enjoys intensely researching what comes to mind, has a very small group of friends, and gets support from his kinda crazy therapist and his family. He is intelligent and also very creative, self-aware but still naive, outspoken but also honest and unaware of sarcasm. He's independent and enjoys self-discovery when he's completely comfortable with it, but also needs sensible motivation. He's a perfectly complex character in his own right. What makes the environment different with the show is that Sam lives in a modern suburbia, where he has resources and an environment where he can alleviate his social awkwardness. Casey, who takes on Gilbert's role, is assigned with keeping a close eye on her brother because her parents don't have an aide to help Sam. So Casey gives him his lunch money and seems to look out for what's best for him and still treat him like any other brother. Casey's toughest obstacle in this first season is that her parents are the obstacle between her taking a track scholarship and an opportunity to study at a well-renowned private school that could help her future success. Because, well, they need someone looking out for Sam. Even though Casey is a few years younger than him. I do feel bad for Casey because she finds darker secrets about her parents and struggles finding herself while also experiencing love for herself. Yet she's not forced rather than just told to care for Sam. Because of her family dilemmas, Casey doesn't seem to have another outlet. But I beg to differ here. They appear to be a average middle-class American family. So you could believe that they have plenty of resources in reach. And knowing my own personal experiences, they could have found an opportunity to have teacher assistants or have Sam under an academic program that ensures his educational accommodations. This could have been a great way to show that he is still a work in progress and is still using everything that could be given to him. I mean, there's an Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that was put into law since 1975. It felt like there was potential to show what could be accessible with the school environment, and even show their pros and cons depending on the severity of the disability, but they try to objectify Sam by making him act like everyone else, and force him around limited growth, without explanation about his progress. Okay, so I see where Casey's upheld responsibility comes from, because she does have working parents. The father, Doug, is a paramedic, and the mother, Elsa, is a hairdresser, but seems to also stay at home quite a bit. Elsa is the primary focus of the two because we see her not wanting to see Sam grow up. She has no identity because she focuses on her family and goes to an autism support group for any means of socializing with other moms and getting some help. That's reasonable. Let's see which option this distressed mother, who isn't even the atypical individual in the story, will take. I can see it in your eyes. Even though some people could relate to her drive for being unappreciated, then the plot that follows could become both predictable and one-dimensional. Parents of autistic individuals are selfless and are constantly working to help kids like me in any way because of their genuine motivation to see us thrive beyond our status quos. But her arc just doesn't fit with the theme of being appreciative of imperfection, even when it's tough to cope with it. I enjoy Doug because he tries to become more involved with his kids after feeling conflicted with his wife and leaves his family, so he spends one-on-one time with them, goes to the same group Elsa attends to understand his son, and especially cares for Casey when he sees her desire to really be at that other school. Even Gilbert's mother, who I really didn't mention earlier but will now, she is loving and conflicted with personal battles of depression and also discrimination in the town for her weight. And her actions are made to prove that she isn't the greatest parent, but is trying to be her best even when she doesn't think so. Although I feel for this show's setup, I found myself not fully invested in it. They additionally discuss the disability with good points about autism, such as how to address someone on the spectrum, or show Sam in perilous situations that he can't control. I thought the metaphorical connections with Sam's experiences and the Arctic represent his motives to push further even when he screws up. I found his obstacles endearing, even when some of them were unrealistic, because I found myself relating to the character within myself, and some of the showings of autism that the show paid attention to were really spot on. When they did it right, they, in my opinion, got it right, and it made it easy for those on the spectrum to really relate to Sam's struggles. There are endless possibilities in the long run to what could still be portrayed in terms of autism. Another addition to that piece is the possible overconsumption of symptoms that some characters appear to have. Now let's look at Julia, who was recently debuted on a children's program I know many people still adore, which is Sesame Street. In the scenes I found on YouTube, we see Julia fitting in with the other leads that have already been a vital part of the show. She seems to get along well with the people in the neighborhood who begin to understand her autism. In a way, an educational show would be the one to actually follow the trope because they're teaching kids and adults alike about a variety of tough as well as fun concepts. There's still a lot more to be seen of Julia, but there were a few vital qualities that I noticed. I saw that the comfort of her stuffed animal and her guidance by the people around her has good forms of attachment and slowly gains trust from her character counterparts. She has an amazing artistic ability and enjoys having fun and playing when she can. So she is obviously of a younger stage of innocence, and this is especially obvious with her use of language. She also desires controlled environments whenever possible, and is relatively sensitive, but knows that she can be brought to a safer place. Also, she may not have eye contact, be aware of conversations, and stick to herself. But it's refreshing that she only had a handful of standouts that served the purpose of the episode, and truly show autism to its greatest accuracy. Even with her younger age, she's able to become more intellectual and understanding of the world as she progresses, and could begin to become stronger as a character as the series progresses with her. Arnie and Sam tend to have a majority of symptoms that seem to be used for humor or to give some larger life to the character. And they're never entirely justified unless they're repetitive behaviors, like Sam wearing headphones because of his sensory input, or Arnie's outbursts of energy when climbing the town's water tower. When representing autism, just don't check off a list to recognize every aspect of a broader disability. I don't think we can get a clearer perception of autism than we do already with the documentaries and blogs that are out there. There are so many stories and perspectives to learn about. And, of course, many more to be uncovered and told just like the spectrum itself. I'll start with a known documentary that has been released fairly recently, called Life Animated. The story is about Owen Susskind, a moderately autistic adult trying to adjust to the real world while also continuing to find his voice in the world through his love for Disney movies. It shows perspectives of his family, offers context into conferences and more specific colleges for those with disabilities, and the independent home life they adapt to. They even discuss fear and love in such an enchanting way. There is so much heart and passion to this film, not only from the nice surprises within the story that let Owen progress as a better person, but also from the filmmakers who wanted to share this animated style that was a paradox of his imagination to his raw perspective. I've even found an amazing media company from Australia and New Zealand area known as Attitude. They discuss a range of disabilities and disorders in an informative way to spread awareness. They discuss a lot about the disability itself in these pieces, so that way you can get some context as you're following along with the individuals in the spotlight. They find a range of people on the spectrum and all give them the respect and the level platform they deserve. And some of them are just heart-wrenching, and I definitely recommend you check them out. The PSAs for autism especially sway the viewer to varying opinions of the diagnosis, whether they be to help those with disabilities or the show biases about the disability, if you know what I mean. There are quite a lot of promotions that are all done in different art styles, from celebrities breaking the fourth wall or showing dramatic realisms of actual circumstances. Regardless, they all target similar messages. I have especially found networks such as BBC, Discovery, and other news networks that have actually published headlines and some great pieces about autism as well, allowing these individuals to shine and even receive proper awareness for some of the discrimination that's unfortunately still around. There are also plenty of books that can range from being specific and informative to speaking to one person's view on the obstacles, most being autobiographical. Not to mention the many YouTube creators and bloggers that have been incredibly honest, sharing their own truth and sharing knowledge about the disability. They all discover these people as more than their diagnosis, just as the audience is learning more about them. The more we see them, the more we somehow find ourselves attached to them. It makes us want to learn about how and why they've come to be in today's outcomes. Now, Sam and Arnie aren't actually played by autistic actors, and that's no different with these movies, along with some others that aren't on top of my head. These actors study their respective roles and portray them wonderfully. And yes, we have individuals such as Dan Aykroyd and Daryl Hannah who have come out as being autistic. But who really knows how many are really out there, because there are known faces who are presumed to have the disability but don't have a doctor's appointment nor proof of their childhood behaviors to explain it. The number is steadily increasing. Not all of them may not be huge industry sensations at the moment, but they are being represented as pure talent. Parents of children with autism, as well as those who have become familiar with the disability through their own peers, have also been able to spread awareness, knowing and portraying a more personal view of the disability because of their connections. So there's going to be continued support by communities, parents, peers, well-known entertainers, and even through each other. It's always good to note that art in general is very subjective. We take away our own reflections and a variety of approaches when we see a piece of entertainment. We may not like something, and we may like something. That's just kind of what happens. And similarly with entertainment involving autism, you may be interested and awe-inspired by one piece of work, and you may also not be so interested and bored with another. Which is why I recommend you to do the research and find what interests you. There are more outlets now that discuss the disability, so who knows what you'll be amazed by in terms of better understanding autism. Could a better piece about autism exist? Of course they do. It just takes a little extra work to find them. There are plenty of voices of autism who are already making themselves heard and noticed in media. And I believe that the more people who are out there and talking about it, the better it is for the community to expand. It's up to us to continue sharing these diversified points of view, because we want to have different options and messages that we can take away from whenever we watch or read or hear something. And no matter what race, sexuality, disability, whatever difference you may have, remember that your story is important and that you have value, because no one else is made quite like you. We have our own dreams, personalities, backgrounds. What we can really use today is to have respect and acceptance for each other, for our own differences. I will. What about you?